Deep in the Tanagar Canyon, past the Breach of Demise and beyond the Forgotten Temple entrance, there's a structure so massive, so ancient, so impossibly precise that it doesn't belong in the Hyrule players think they know. This isn't just another shrine or monster camp, this is something older than the Calamity, older than the Sheikah technology scattered across the kingdom, possibly older than Hyrule itself. And hidden within its weathered stones and guardian-infested corridors are secrets that completely rewrite everything we thought we understood about the kingdom's history. What if the Forgotten Temple isn't forgotten at all, but deliberately hidden? When players first stumble upon the Forgotten Temple in Breath of the Wild, it's usually by accident. Maybe they're following a shrine quest, or perhaps they're just exploring the northwest corner of Hyrule's map. Either way, the approach is intimidating, a narrow canyon passage lined with decayed guardians, their ancient eyes tracking Link's every move. The atmosphere is oppressive, dangerous, absolutely dripping with the weight of forgotten ages. But once players navigate that gauntlet and step inside the temple proper, something feels different. The scale is overwhelming. Massive pillars stretch toward a ceiling so high it disappears into shadow. The hallway seems to extend forever, lined with more dormant guardians than anywhere else in Hyrule. And at the end of this impossibly long corridor sits the treasure every player seeks, a shrine containing one of the game's most powerful weapons, along with the ceremonial armor of the hero of time himself. Most players grab the loot and leave, satisfied with their discovery, but the truly observant, the ones who stop to examine the architecture, the placement, the environmental details, they realize something profound. This temple shouldn't exist, not in the form it takes, not with the technology surrounding it, not in this location. Let's start with the architecture, because this is where the Forgotten Temple reveals its first major secret. Look closely at the construction. The blocks used to build this structure are cut with machine-like precision. The edges are sharp, the surface is smooth, the measurements exact. This isn't the rough-hewn stonework of medieval castles or ancient ruins. This is advanced engineering, the kind that requires sophisticated tools and mathematical understanding. Compare the Forgotten Temple's construction to other ruins in Breath of the Wild. The Eastern Abbey, crumbling brick and mortar, clearly medieval in design. The Breach of Demise, natural rock formations adapted for defensive purposes. Even Hyrule Castle itself, the seat of the royal family, shows construction techniques consistent with traditional masonry. Impressive, yes, but fundamentally achievable with manual labor and time. The Forgotten Temple is different. The blocks are enormous, each one weighing multiple tons, yet they're fitted together with minimal gaps. There's no mortar, no binding agent visible between the stones. They simply fit perfectly. The architectural style echoes something far more ancient than medieval Hyrule, something that speaks of a civilization with knowledge and capabilities that shouldn't exist in this era. And here's where things get really interesting. The Forgotten Temple shares architectural DNA with exactly one other type of structure in Breath of the Wild, the shrines. Not the exterior shrine pedestals that dot Hyrule's landscape, but the interior spaces, those impossibly precise corridors and chambers that players navigate to solve puzzles and fight tests of strength. The same perfect angles, the same smooth surfaces, the same advanced construction techniques. But the shrines were built by the Sheikah 10,000 years ago, right? That's what Creating a Champion, the official art book and masterworks companion to Breath of the Wild, tells players. The Sheikah tribe developed incredible technology, built the divine beasts and guardians, created the shrine network to test future heroes. All of this happened 10 millennia before Link's awakening in response to the first appearance of Calamity Ganon. So, if the Forgotten Temple uses the same construction techniques as the shrines, does that mean it was also built by the Sheikah 10,000 years ago? That would make sense, except for one critical problem. The Forgotten Temple is falling apart. It's ancient in a way the shrines aren't. The shrines, despite being 10,000 years old, are pristine. Their technology still functions perfectly. Their walls show no weathering, no degradation, no signs of age.
The Forgotten Temple, by contrast, is crumbling. The ceiling has collapsed in multiple places, letting in sunlight and vegetation. The floor is littered with debris. The outer walls are so eroded that the original structure is barely recognizable from outside. This structure has experienced significantly more weathering than the shrines, despite using similar construction techniques, which means it's older, potentially much, much older. Think about what that implies. If the Forgotten Temple predates the Sheikah's golden age 10,000 years ago, then Hyrule's history extends back further than the game explicitly states. There was a civilization, an advanced society with engineering capabilities comparable to or exceeding the Sheikah that existed before the first Calamity. And this civilization built structures of such scale and precision that even 10 millennia of erosion haven't completely destroyed them. Now let's examine the environmental clues, because the temple's location isn't random. It's situated in Tanagar Canyon, a remote northwestern region of Hyrule that most players never fully explore. The canyon itself is geologically unusual: sheer cliff faces, narrow passages, a landscape that feels carved rather than naturally formed. And the vegetation around the temple, it's specific, deliberate, almost curated. Ancient trees grow around the temple entrance, their roots breaking through stone pathways that were clearly designed for foot traffic. These aren't random forest growth. These are the descendants of intentionally planted specimens, part of a landscape design that incorporated living elements into the temple's aesthetic. The presence of specific plant species around ancient ruins can tell archaeologists about the original builders' agricultural knowledge, their understanding of ecology, their relationship with the natural world. In the case of the Forgotten Temple, the vegetation suggests the builders had sophisticated botanical knowledge. Certain trees around the temple are varieties that require specific soil conditions and careful cultivation. They don't grow wild in Hyrule. They need to be planted, tended, maintained. The fact that they're still thriving around the temple thousands of years after the civilization that planted them disappeared speaks to an understanding of long-term ecological planning that rivals or exceeds modern Hyrule's capabilities. And then there's the water. Notice how the temple is positioned relative to the Tanagar Canyon's waterways? The drainage is deliberate, designed to channel water away from the structure's foundation. Even after millennia of erosion, the temple's floor remains relatively dry despite being in a region with significant rainfall. This isn't luck, it's engineering. The builders understood hydrology, understood how water moves through landscapes, understood how to design structures that would resist water damage for ages. But perhaps the most telling environmental detail is the temple's orientation. Stand at the entrance and look down the main corridor toward the shrine at the far end. The alignment is precise, deliberately calculated. And if players visit during specific times of day, during certain seasons, the sunlight streaming through the collapsed ceiling sections illuminates the corridor in very specific ways. This kind of astronomical alignment is characteristic of ancient ceremonial structures across multiple real-world cultures. The builders weren't just creating a functional space, they were encoding astronomical knowledge into the architecture itself. They understood solar cycles, understood how to calculate angles and positions, understood how to create structures that would maintain their astronomical significance for thousands of years, despite erosion and damage. Now let's talk about the Guardians, because their presence in the Forgotten Temple tells a story all its own. The temple is absolutely infested with them. Decayed guardians lie in the approach canyon, guardian stalkers patrol the interior corridor, more decayed guardians rest in the side chambers. It's one of the highest concentrations of guardian-type enemies in the entire game. Why here? Why this specific location? The obvious answer is that the Sheikah placed guardians here to protect something important. But what? The shrine at the end contains powerful equipment, sure, but there are shrines all over Hyrule and most of them aren't defended by armies of guardians. The defense is disproportionate to the apparent value of what's being protected. Unless, what if the guardians weren't placed here by the Sheikah? What if they were drawn here? What if something about the Forgotten Temple itself attracted or activated them? The Guardians in this location behave slightly differently than Guardians elsewhere in Hyrule. They're more densely packed, their patrol patterns more systematic, almost as if they're defending a perimeter rather than randomly wandering. Consider the layout of the Guardian placement. The canyon approach creates a choke point, a narrow passage where enemies must advance single file, where superior numbers offer no tactical advantage.
Inside the temple, the guardians are positioned to create overlapping fields of fire to cover each other's blind spots, to ensure no intruder can reach the shrine without engaging multiple enemies. This isn't random enemy placement for gameplay purposes, this is military strategy, defensive architecture designed by someone who understood combat tactics. And here's a detail most players miss. The guardians in the Forgotten Temple are all decayed or dormant stalkers. There are no flying guardians, no scouts, no turrets, only the heavy combat models. Why would the Sheikah, with their full range of guardian variants, choose to deploy only the largest, most powerful, most heavily armed models to this location? Unless the defense wasn't meant for typical threats, but for something that required overwhelming firepower to contain. The temple itself has defensive features built into its architecture. Notice the columns lining the main corridor? They're not purely decorative, they create cover, break up sightlines, provide tactical positions for defenders. The side chambers aren't just random rooms, they're defensive positions, places where guards could fall back, where reserves could be stationed, where supplies could be stored during a prolonged siege. And those collapsed sections of ceiling? Look more closely at the damage pattern. This isn't just erosion in time. Some of those collapses show signs of deliberate destruction, as if someone wanted to prevent the temple from being used as a defensive stronghold. The rubble patterns, the way the stones fell, the specific sections that were destroyed, it all suggests intentional sabotage rather than natural decay. So what was the Forgotten Temple's original purpose? What could require such massive scale, such advanced construction, such overwhelming defensive measures? The game never explicitly answers this question, but the clues point towards several possibilities, each more fascinating than the last. Theory 1. The Forgotten Temple was a power generation facility. Think about the shrine at the end of the corridor. Shrines in Breath of the Wild are powered by ancient energy sources, part of the Sheikah's mastery of mystical technology. What if the Forgotten Temple was an early prototype, a test facility where an even older civilization experimented with harnessing similar energies? The massive scale would be necessary to contain powerful energy sources. The precise construction would prevent leakage or containment failure. The defensive measures would make sense too. Ancient power sources are dangerous, require careful monitoring, need to be protected from those who might misuse them. And if something went wrong, if an experiment failed catastrophically, that would explain the deliberate destruction visible in the collapsed sections. Shut down the facility, seal it away, let time and erosion hide it from future generations who might be tempted to reactivate dangerous technology. Theory 2. The Forgotten Temple was a research facility for a pre-Sheikah advanced civilization. This theory has compelling evidence. The astronomical alignments suggest sophisticated scientific knowledge. The engineering environment shows understanding of long-term ecological systems. The architectural precision indicates advanced mathematics and material science. What if there was a golden age of Hyrulean civilization that predated the Sheikah era, a time when knowledge and technology flourished, when great works of engineering were undertaken, when the secrets of the world were studied and cataloged? The Forgotten Temple could be their greatest research center, a place where the brightest minds gathered to push the boundaries of understanding. This would explain why it shares construction techniques with Sheikah shrines. The Sheikah didn't invent advanced construction, they rediscovered it. They found ruins like the Forgotten Temple, studied the techniques, reverse-engineered the knowledge, and applied it to their own projects 10,000 years ago. The Sheikah are known for their scholarship and dedication to preserving knowledge. What if much of their innovation was actually archaeological recovery of even older wisdom? Theory 3. The Forgotten Temple was a sacred vault, a repository for objects or knowledge too dangerous or too sacred to keep elsewhere. This might be the most compelling theory of all. Look at what's actually in the temple, a shrine containing the hero's equipment and powerful weapons, not random loot, but ceremonial items tied to Hyrule's greatest legends. What if the temple was designed from the beginning as a sacred repository, a place where each generation would deposit their most valued artifacts, their most powerful weapons, their most sacred texts?
The astronomical alignments could mark important dates when the vault was opened for ceremonies. The defensive measures would prevent theft or desecration. The remote location would keep casual treasure hunters away. Over thousands of years, as civilizations rose and fell, as knowledge was lost and rediscovered, the temple's original purpose could have been forgotten. Items were removed, new items added, the Sheikah placed guardians to protect what remained. Eventually, only the hero's equipment was left, along with whispers of ancient secrets that no one quite understood anymore. But regardless of which theory is correct, and the truth might incorporate elements of all three, one thing is absolutely certain. The Forgotten Temple represents a chapter of Hyrule's history that has been lost to time, a chapter that predates the Calamity, predates the Sheikah Golden Age, possibly predates the founding of the Hyrulean kingdom itself. Think about the implications for the broader Zelda timeline. Breath of the Wild takes place at the end of one of the three timeline branches established after Ocarina of Time. 10,000 years before the game's events, the first Calamity appeared and was defeated by advanced Sheikah technology. But the Forgotten Temple suggests there were advanced civilizations even before that first Calamity. How far back does Hyrule's history actually extend? The official timeline in Hyrule Historia shows thousands of years of history across multiple branches, but all of it assumes that advanced civilization began with the kingdom's founding after Skyward Sword. What if that assumption is wrong? What if there were rises and falls of civilization, golden ages and dark ages, lost empires and forgotten kingdoms stretching back thousands of years before even the earliest timeline entries? The Forgotten Temple could be evidence of cyclical history in Hyrule, not just the cycle of Ganon's resurrection that's central to the Zelda narrative, but a broader cycle of civilization itself. Societies rise, achieve great heights of technology and knowledge, then fall for unknown reasons. Their ruins are buried by time, their achievements forgotten. New civilizations emerge, discover the ruins, marvel at the ancients' wisdom, then eventually fall themselves. This pattern appears throughout real-world history. Ancient civilizations built structures so impressive that later generations attributed them to gods or giants, unable to believe their ancestors possessed such knowledge. The pyramids of Egypt, the megaliths of Stonehenge, the precision engineering of ancient Rome, all of them seemed impossible to medieval Europeans who had lost the techniques required to build them. Breath of the Wild's Hyrule might be experiencing the same cycle. The Sheikah represent the last great golden age, 10,000 years ago. They built divine beasts and guardians, created a network of shrines, mastered ancient energy sources. But before them, perhaps dozens of previous civilizations, each with their own achievements, each leaving behind ruins like the Forgotten Temple that later generations would marvel at without understanding. And here's the truly unsettling thought. What caused these previous civilizations to fall? The game tells players that 10,000 years ago, Calamity Ganon appeared for the first time. But what if that's not accurate? What if Ganon, or something like Ganon, has been appearing for far longer than recorded history suggests? What if the cycle of destruction extends back millennia before the Sheikah era? The Forgotten Temple's deliberate damage, the collapsed sections that seem intentionally destroyed, could be evidence of an ancient calamity. A civilization built this magnificent structure, achieved remarkable technological heights, then faced a catastrophe so severe that their greatest buildings were deliberately demolished to prevent them being used by the enemy. The survivors fled, knowledge was lost, and by the time new civilizations emerged, the temple was already ancient, already forgotten. This recontextualizes everything players thought they knew about Breath of the Wild's lore. The game presents itself as taking place after 10,000 years of recorded history, but the Forgotten Temple suggests that 10,000 years might just be the most recent chapter in a story spanning tens or hundreds of thousands of years. Hyrule isn't young, it's ancient beyond measure, layered with the ruins of countless previous iterations. Look around the rest of Breath of the Wild's Hyrule with this perspective, and suddenly other mysteries make sense. The Lome Labyrinth Islands scattered across the map, massive stone mazes that serve no apparent purpose. Could they be ruins from another ancient civilization, built for reasons lost to time? The Leviathan skeletons in the Gerudo Desert, Elden Mountains, and Hebra region, remnants of creatures so massive they dwarf anything alive in current Hyrule. What kind of ecosystem supported such giants? What ancient age did they belong to? The mysterious ruins throughout Hyrule, the weathered stone circles, the weathered statues of unknown gods, the architectural styles that don't match any known civilization, they could all be pieces of this hidden history, each one a fragment of a puzzle depicting civilizations that rose and fell long before the Hyrule players know came into being.
And the Forgotten Temple sits at the center of this revelation, the key that unlocks a whole new understanding of the kingdom's past. It's not just another dungeon or challenge, it's a historical monument, a link to ages so ancient that even the long-lived Sheikah had forgotten they existed. Every weathered stone, every precise angle, every astronomical alignment is a message from ancestors trying to communicate across the gulf of millennia. What knowledge do they possess that's been lost? What warnings did they try to preserve? What secrets did they deliberately hide in structures like the Forgotten Temple, knowing that only those wise enough to recognize the clues would be able to decipher them? The shrine at the temple's end contains powerful equipment, but could it also contain information, knowledge encoded in the architecture itself, waiting for someone clever enough to decode it? This is why the Forgotten Temple matters so much to understanding Breath of the Wild's deeper lore. It's not just about the gameplay challenge of fighting through Guardians, it's not just about collecting the hero's equipment at the end, it's about recognizing that Hyrule is built on layers upon layers of history, that civilizations have risen and fallen countless times, that the kingdom's true age is far greater than anyone suspects. And here's the beautiful thing, Nintendo has confirmed through creating a champion and various developer interviews that Breath of the Wild's Hyrule is intentionally designed to feel ancient, to have a weight of history that players can sense even if they don't fully understand it. The Forgotten Temple is the physical embodiment of that design philosophy. It's meant to make players stop and wonder, to spark exactly these kinds of questions about what came before. The game doesn't give definitive answers because the mystery is part of the point. Ancient civilizations should be mysterious, their full stories lost to time. Players should feel like archaeologists piecing together fragments, forming theories based on architectural evidence and environmental clues. The uncertainty, the sense that there's always more to discover, keeps Hyrule feeling alive and deep and worthy of exploration. But now that players know to look for these clues, now that the Forgotten Temple has opened their eyes to Hyrule's hidden history, what else might they discover? What other ruins hide secrets of ancient civilizations? What other structures contain astronomical alignments or architectural signatures that don't match known building styles? What other pieces of the puzzle are scattered across the kingdom, waiting for observant explorers to find them? The Zonai ruins in the Faron region show architectural styles completely different from anything else in Hyrule. Could they represent yet another ancient civilization, contemporary with or even predating the builders of the Forgotten Temple? The mysterious technological artifacts scattered throughout Hyrule, clearly advanced but not matching Sheikah design. Could they be remnants of other lost ages? The ancient text in the forgotten corners of Hyrule Castle, written in languages no one can read anymore. Could they be historical records from civilizations that fell millennia ago? Every mystery in Breath of the Wild takes on new significance when viewed through the lens of cyclical history. The game isn't just about defeating Calamity Ganon and saving the current Hyrule. It's about understanding that this kingdom, this land, this world has been saved and destroyed and rebuilt countless times. Link isn't the first hero, he's the latest in an endless chain stretching back to ages so ancient they've become mythology. And the Forgotten Temple stands as proof of this cycle, a monument built by people whose names have been lost, but whose achievements remain.
They created something so magnificent, so precisely engineered, so fundamentally impressive that even 10,000 years of erosion couldn't completely destroy it. Their knowledge may be forgotten, their civilization may have crumbled, their very existence may have faded from historical record, but their legacy endures in the stones they placed, in the corridors they built, in the astronomical knowledge they encoded in architecture. This is why the Forgotten Temple holds Hyrule's oldest secrets, not because there's a hidden boss or a special treasure chest players haven't found yet, but because the structure itself is the secret. Its very existence rewrites Hyrule's history, extends the timeline back thousands of years beyond what official records suggest, reveals cycles of civilization that the current age has completely forgotten. When players walk those ancient corridors, fighting through guardians and marveling at the scale, they're walking through a monument to human achievement and loss. Every step echoes with the footsteps of ancient builders who poured their knowledge and skill into creating something that would outlast them. Every stone whispers stories of civilizations that rose to incredible heights, then vanished, leaving only ruins and questions behind. And maybe that's the most profound lesson the Forgotten Temple teaches, that all civilizations are temporary. The ancient builders who created the temple believed they were building for eternity, encoding their knowledge in stone that would last forever.
They couldn't imagine their advanced society would fall, that their names would be forgotten, that future generations would walk through their greatest achievement and not even know who built it. The Sheikah 10,000 years ago probably felt the same way. They built divine beasts and guardians, created a shrine network, developed technology that seemed invincible. And then the Calamity corrupted their greatest achievements, turned their own guardians against them, brought their golden age crashing down. Now the current Hyrule struggles to even understand what the ancient Sheikah accomplished, let alone replicate it. What does that mean for Breath of the Wild's Hyrule after the game ends? Link defeats Calamity Ganon, Zelda is freed, the kingdom can begin rebuilding. But for how long? How many generations before this age, too, becomes ancient history? How long before future civilizations discover the ruins of Hyrule Castle and wonder what kind of people built such structures? How long before the divine beasts become mysterious ruins that no one quite understands anymore? The cycle continues. Civilizations rise and fall. Knowledge is gained and lost. Heroes save the world, then become legends, then become myths, then become completely forgotten. The Forgotten Temple has watched this cycle repeat for ages beyond counting, and it will continue watching long after the events of Breath of the Wild fade into ancient history themselves. And that's the ultimate secret hidden in those weathered stones and precise angles. Not a treasure or a boss or a game mechanic, but a profound meditation on the impermanence of civilizations and the endurance of human achievement. The ancient builders are gone. Their names lost, their stories forgotten, but their temple remains, standing as testament to the heights humanity can reach and the inevitable cycles of history that all civilizations face. So the next time players visit the Forgotten Temple, they should pause before fighting the Guardians or rushing to claim the equipment at the end. Look at the architecture. Feel the weight of ages in those stones. Recognize that they're standing in a place older than history, built by people whose advanced knowledge has been completely forgotten by time. This isn't just another location in a video game. It's a monument to lost civilizations, a key to understanding Hyrule's true age, and proof that the kingdom's history extends far deeper than anyone imagined. The Forgotten Temple holds Hyrule's oldest secrets not because it hides them in treasure chests or locked rooms, but because it is the secret. Its very existence is the revelation. And once players understand that, once they recognize the true significance of these ancient stones and precise corridors, Breath of the Wild's entire world transforms into an archaeological treasure trove just waiting to have its deeper mysteries uncovered.